Today, what are we going to talk about? Well, it's when should I use intensification methods. So what are intensification methods? Well, it basically means that you're using things like drop sets, supersets, Godzilla sets, ascending sets, all those fun things that you keep in your little black book, right? Well, first off, let's talk about the impact of these and why you would use them, right? Everyone knows what failure training is, right? Failure is basically where I can't get another repetition. Why is failure important? Why is it a tool? Well, if you look from a nervous system standpoint, once I can't get another rep or I'm ending that set, basically, your nervous system recruits all of the muscle fibers. When I say recruits, it means it uses them. And number two, it fires them at a maximal rate, okay? So if you think about it, so I can have a muscle and my brain can send a signal that goes boop, boop, boop. That means I've recruited them. However, if I want to maximally use that muscle, I'm going to fire really rapidly. Boop, 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 like that. Basically, rapid fire, rapid fire. When you fire maximal at rapid fire, the muscle contracts at its highest intensity. It gets its greatest force output, okay? So what am I telling you? This is not just a muscle thing. It's a nervous system thing when you're actually at failure, okay? And a lot of times, actually, what's important about failure is a lot of muscles, it's not just enough to recruit them, you have to fatigue them. And so at failure, that happens. Now, we're talking about intensification methods. We're now extending that period of time, okay? We're extending that period of time from more than just a moment into several moments, okay? So think about it. I've gone to failure, and now I drop the weight by 20%, by 30%. I keep going. So now your nervous system's taxed beyond belief. And studies show that when I look at muscle activation, in fact, there's a really great researcher, his name's Ahottinen. He's a good friend of mine, and Ahottinen's from Jyväskylä, Finland. And he did studies basically where what he found is that when you do failure and beyond failure techniques, that your nervous system's taxed for a number of days. So if I actually measure muscle activation in a muscle and my maximal ability to activate it, irrespective of muscle damage, I can't activate it as much, okay? Now, we know that from science. You know that how? I did beyond failure methods on my legs, and the next day, I'm cranky, right? You know how it is, or your friend did beyond failure methods and you're talking to them, they snap at you. That's not just crankiness, that's called central fatigue. You're tired, you know what I mean? You're groggy and stuff like that. That's central fatigue, okay? So, the point is, with intensification methods, realize you're going to cause central fatigue, okay? So there's a number of things we need to take into account, okay? Number one, when should I use them? Well, and how frequently should I use them? Number one, you should use them when you feel like your nervous system's refreshed. If I'm cranky and I'm tired, don't go into the weight room and start doing multiple drop sets, because your nervous system's so taxed that you're going to tax it beyond where it's going to take too long, and you're not going to recover well, and you're going to overtrain or overreach. You don't want that, okay? So if I feel fantastic and I'm ready to go that day, that's when you throw on your drop sets. How frequently? 1 to 2 times a week per body part would be a good way to do it, especially on a growth cycle. And why 1 or 2? Well, it comes back to autoregulation, okay? If I'm feeling great only 1 time during the week on a body part, do it then. If I feel phenomenal on 2, do it then. There's another thing that you also have to realize though, sequencing, okay? Say that your goal, remember it's all about goals, okay? If your primary goal is you're bringing up your legs, okay? So your main focus are your legs. Then what you have to understand is that that's got to be the goal. Everything's got to be centered around that. Your workouts need to be centered around that. Your training week should be sequenced around your legs. So if I'm training my legs on, let's say, today's Friday for me, if I'm going to train my legs on Saturday, it's good because I can sleep in on Saturday, I can get proper nutrition, I don't have the stress of like ASPI on me as much. Well, that's great, but if I go in on Friday and I'm training my back and I do a bunch of beyond failure methods, that taxes my nervous system. That same nervous system has to control my leg workout, okay? And studies show that if I go to failure or beyond on my chest, that my leg workout will be impacted the next day. Not because I damaged the legs, because my nervous system's tired, okay? So again, proper sequencing. What's your goal, right? Arnold called it, or part of the Weider principles, they call it the priority principle. What's your priority? One of the things I've learned about like in business as well as in training is, what's your priority? Don't focus on everything, because just like in business or even in school, in your training, if you try and focus on building everything at once, you won't grow. Nothing will grow, okay? In fact, you might lose size. So I think that's the main point about this. Auto-regulate, use it once to twice a week, and realize that your recovery is going to be greater. It's going to probably take you anywhere from 48 to even 96 hours, depending on how the body part you train. Like if you did legs beyond fit, if I do drop sets on legs, it might take me 96 hours to centrally recover. If I did drop sets on arms, it might only take 48 hours. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next time.